Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are putting aside the shallow end of the pool entirely.
Oh, yeah.
We are jumping straight into what is arguably one of the most cinematic, intense, and heavily debated texts in human history. We're looking at Revelation chapter 13.
It is a heavy hitter. Honestly, if you were going to storyboard this chapter for a film, you'd blow your entire CGI budget in the first 5 minutes.
Right.
You have multi-headed monsters rising from the ocean, dragons transferring power, fire raining down from the sky, and a global economic system that tracks every single transaction. It's just so dense.
It's vivid, but it's also confusing. I think for a lot of people, myself included, this chapter is where they tap out of reading Revelation because it feels like a fever dream. You read it and you think, okay, am I supposed to take this literally? Is this a metaphor? What is this? But the research we have for today is, well, it's really helpful because it cuts through that noise.
It does.
We're looking at a theological breakdown that focuses on the expanded plain sense of the text.
Right. And that's a crucial distinction to make right at the start. Expanded plain sense doesn't mean we just, guess what the scary monsters look like based on modern movies.
Right.
It means we look at the original Greek terms and, more importantly, the Old Testament code that John the author was using.
So it's like decoding a cipher.
Exactly. John wasn't writing in a vacuum. He was referencing prophecies from books like Daniel to build a very specific picture. The plain sense means understanding the text the way a first-century believer who was, steeped in the Hebrew scriptures would have understood it.
Okay, so our mission for today is to decode the two famous beasts in this chapter. And naturally, we have to talk about the number 666.
Of course.
But what struck me reading through this analysis is that it frames the whole chapter not as a monster story, but as a study in power and deception.
That is the thread that ties this whole deep dive together.
I agree.
Deception. Specifically the idea of a counterfeit.
A counterfeit.
As we unpack this, you're going to see that everything the bad guys do in this chapter is actually a twisted mirror image of something holy. It's a masterclass in faking authority.
That's a great framing. Okay, let's get into the text. The chapter opens with a scene that feels like a kaiju movie.
It really does.
Verse 1 describes a beast rising up out of the sea. The description is incredibly specific. 7 heads, 10 horns, 10 crowns. My first thought is this a literal sea monster, like a Godzilla situation?
And that's the first hurdle. But the source says emphatically, no. This is where that expanded plain sense kicks in. In biblical symbolism, the sea isn't just water. To the ancient mind, the sea was terrifying, uncontrollable.
Okay.
It represents the Gentile nation's humanity in a state of chaos, restlessness, and political tumult.
So the beast isn't coming from the ocean floor. He's emerging from political chaos.
Precisely. This beast represents a person, the Antichrist, emerging from a volatile global political landscape. He rises out of the instability of the nations.
It's a political entity. Okay, that makes sense. But let's look at the design of this thing. 7 heads and 10 horns. It sounds random, but the notes indicate these numbers are doing a lot of heavy lifting.
They are. The 7 heads represent historic empires, the continuity of earthly power that has always opposed God. But the 10 horns, those symbolize future political leaders.
Future leaders.
The text calls them 10 kings, who are allied with this central figure. It's suggesting a coalition.
I noticed a specific detail about the accessories here that connects to your counterfeit theme. It mentions 10 crowns on the horns. The notes make a really interesting comparison to Christ here.
This is the first major clue. In Revelation 19, Christ is described as wearing many diadems or crowns. This beast is wearing crowns to mimic that authority. And notice the text says he has a blasphemous name on his heads. He is claiming divine titles. He's essentially saying, I am the king, but he's a
usurper.
A total usurper. He's dressing the part to fool the public.
And then we get the body of the beast in verse 2. This is where it gets really weird. It looks like a leopard, has feet like a bear, and a mouth like a lion. On the surface, it just sounds like a chaotic zoo animal.
A total mashup.
But our source points out that these aren't random choices, are they?
Not at all.
No.
No, this is where that Old Testament decoder ring is essential. If you know the book of Daniel, specifically chapter 7, this is a direct callback.
Daniel 7, yeah.
In Daniel, he sees 4 beasts representing world empires. A lion, which was Babylon, a bear, which was Medo-Persia, and a leopard, which was Greece.
Okay, so John is taking all the bad guys from history, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and mashing them into one single body.
Exactly. The source explains that this beast represents a final empire. It possesses the speed and conquest of the leopard, the crushing strength of the bear, and the terrifying roar of the lion. It's the culmination of human political power gone wrong.
That is a terrifying thought, like the greatest hits of totalitarianism.
It really is.
But you have to ask, where does he get the juice to run this empire? Because verse 2 is very clear. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority.
And we know from earlier in Revelation that the dragon is Satan. So this is an unholy transfer of power.
Right.
Satan gives the beast a trifecta. Power, which is supernatural influence, a throne, which is political rule, and authority to dominate nations.
So the dragon is the force behind the throne.
Mm.
But here is where the narrative takes a really sharp turn into that deception theme. Verse 3, I think this is the pivot point of the whole chapter.
Oh, it absolutely is.
It says, one of the beast's heads looked like it had been mortally wounded, but then the deadly wound was healed.
This is crucial. The source describes this as a counterfeit resurrection. Think about the central claim of Christianity, the foundation of the faith. The Lamb Jesus was slain and rose from the dead.
Wow.
Here, the beast has a fatal wound and appears to rise or be healed.
So he's literally mimicking the resurrection of Jesus to validate his own authority.
Yes. And look at the result. The text says, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. The analysis emphasizes that this fake miracle is the catalyst.
It's the tipping point.
It is. Politics alone doesn't get the whole world on board. Military might creates fear, but not devotion, but a resurrection, a conquest of death. That makes people say, okay, this guy is the real deal.
It stops being politics and starts being religion.
Precisely. It becomes a cult of worship.
That leads perfectly into the second part of our dive, which is verses 4 through 10. We move from the setup to the cult of personality. Because in verse 4, the people start worshiping the dragon and the beast, and they have this chant, who is like the beast, who is able to make war with him.
It sounds like a catchy slogan at a rally, but the source points out this is actually a blasphemous remix of a Bible verse.
A remix.
It's a direct inversion of Exodus 15:11, where Moses praises God, saying, who is like the Lord. By applying that structure to the beast, the world is essentially declaring him to be godlike.
Wow.
They see him as invincible. If he can survive a mortal wound, who could possibly fight him? It's a declaration of total submission.
It's total adoration. But the text also gives us some very strict boundaries on this guy, which I found comforting amidst all the doom and gloom.
Yes.
Verse 5 says he was given a mouth to speak great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. The analysis really highlights that word, given.
It's arguably the most important theological word in the chapter. Given implies permission. The source emphasizes that even at the height of his power, the beast is on a leash.
He's on a leash.
He isn't taking authority. God is allowing it for a specific purpose. It's sovereignty in action. And he's on a clock 42 months. That's 3.5 years.
So it's a limited engagement.
Exactly. He's not eternal. He has an expiration date written into the script before he even starts.
Still, he does a lot of damage before that expiration date hits. Verse 6 says he attacks God's name, God's tabernacle, his dwelling, and those who dwell in heaven. It's verbal assault.
He's trying to dismantle the reputation of God. It's a propaganda war. He can't reach heaven to fight God, so he blasphemes him to the people on earth.
And then comes verse 7, which I think is a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. It says it was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. Now, overcome. That's a strong word.
It is.
If I'm a believer reading this, I'm thinking, wait, does the bad guy win?
Yeah, that is the tension, isn't it? The source makes a critical distinction here. He overcomes them physically.
Physically?
This refers to persecution, imprisonment, martyrdom. The text doesn't shy away from that, but he does not overcome them spiritually. He can kill the body, but he cannot touch the soul.
So it's a grim reality. But the text is being honest about the cost of loyalty.
There is no sugarcoating it, no.
And the scope is massive. It says he has authority over every tribe, tongue, and nation, a global system. But the text splits humanity into two very distinct groups. Verse 8 calls the first group the earth dwellers.
Which sounds like a sci-fi term, right?
Totally. Attack of the earth dwellers.
But in Revelation, earth dwellers is a technical term for hardened unbelievers. These are people who are totally invested in the here and now. They have no regard for heaven or the eternal.
I see.
The source says these are the ones who worship the beast because he gives them what they want. Earthly power, stability, and a sense of wonder right here, right now.
And the other group?
The other group is defined by a book. The book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world.
I love that phrase, slain from the foundation of the world. It kind of messes with your sense of time.
It is profound. It implies that the plan of redemption and the security of those believers predates history itself.
Wow.
Before the beast ever rose from the sea, before the chaos, the Lamb was already the plan. So while the earth dwellers are swept up in the hype, the believers are anchored in something that existed before time began.
So their security isn't based on surviving the beast physically. It's based on being in the book eternally.
Right, which is why verse 10 gives that specific instruction. It says, "He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints."
How does the source interpret that? It sounds a bit like karma.
It's a call to endurance and non-retaliation. The source interprets this as a promise of divine justice. The captors will eventually become captives. God will handle the justice. But the believers are told, don't fight fire with fire.
Right.
Your role is patience and faith. Justice is coming, but you have to wait for it.
Okay, so just when we think we have a handle on the villain, the beast from the sea, the camera pans, verse 11 introduces a new character, the beast from the earth.
Right. This figure is often called the false prophet.
And his description is, it's unsettling in a different way. The first beast was a monster. This one has 2 horns like a lamb, but spoke like a dragon.
The visuals are everything here. Horns like a lamb. Think about that. He looks gentle. He looks harmless. He might even look Christ-like, mimicking the Lamb of God.
But when he opens his mouth,
it's the dragon's message. The source calls this the ultimate deception evil wrapped in a package of religious piety.
So if the first beast is the king or the emperor, who is this guy? What's his job?
He's the enforcer. Or maybe the hype man is a better term. His entire role is to point people to the first beast. He exercises the authority of the first beast and forces the world to worship him.
He's the minister of propaganda.
Essentially, yes. But he doesn't just use words. He has special effects. Verse 13 says he performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven.
And here's the counterfeit again. Because I remember my Sunday school stories. Who was famous in the Bible for calling down fire from heaven.
Elijah. It was the ultimate proof that God was with him in his showdown against the prophets of Baal.
So the false prophet is stealing God's signature move.
The source explicitly links this. He is counterfeiting the prophetic power of God. Imagine seeing that on the news, someone literally calling fire down from the sky.
It would be incredibly convincing.
It validates his message. It makes people think, well, God must be with this guy.
It definitely backs up the claim that he has power. But then he takes it a step further. Verses 14 and 15. He commands the people to make an image to the beast. And then, this is the wild part, he is granted power to give breath to the image so that it can speak.
The Greek word there is pneuma, which means breath or spirit. Now, the source clarifies this isn't true. Biological life, God is the only creator of life. But it is supernatural animation.
So we aren't necessarily talking about a robot or AI.
The source leaves it open, but it leans towards something demonic, whether it's demonic possession of an object or some advanced technology that is supernaturally empowered. The result is an image that seems alive. It speaks. It has agency.
Yeah, it doesn't just make speeches. It issues an ultimatum.
Right. If you don't worship the image, you are killed. It's a death sentence for non-compliance.
So let's recap. You have a global leader who apparently came back from the dead. He's backed by a religious leader who calls down fire from the sky. And now you have a talking statue that demands worship. You can see why the earth dwellers are deceived.
Exactly. The source tells us this is a world where seeing is believing. The evidence of their eyes tells them this is God, but what they are seeing is a lie.
And that brings us to the mechanism of control, the most famous part of this chapter, the mark of the beast, verses 16 through 18.
Here we go.
The mechanism is described as a mark on the right hand or the forehead. I feel like pop culture has run wild with this. Barcodes, microchips. What does the source actually focus on?
The source steers us away from just guessing the technology and focuses on the symbolism. In the ancient world, slaves were sometimes marked to show who owned them. Soldiers were marked. This is a public declaration. I belong to the beast.
And the source notes that this is also a counterfeit, right? Because elsewhere in Revelation, God marks his people.
Yes, in chapter 7, God places a seal on the foreheads of his servants. So the mark of the beast is Satan's mocking copy of God's seal.
One for protection, one for destruction.
Exactly.
But the mark isn't just a spiritual badge. It's incredibly practical. Verse 17 says that no one can buy or sell unless they have the mark.
This is economic warfare. The source calls it a forced compliance system. It's the ultimate cancellation. If you don't bow down, you don't eat. You can't trade, can't pay rent, can't do business. It squeezes you out of society completely.
It forces a choice, your faith or your survival.
That's the test. It makes the cost of following God immediate and painful.
And then we get to verse 18. Here is wisdom. The number of the beast is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Okay, let's decode this.
Well, first, it warns us this requires spiritual discernment. It's not just a math puzzle where if you add up the letters of a politician's name, you catch the Antichrist.
All right, people have been trying that forever.
For centuries, but the source breaks it down symbolically. In the Bible, the number 7 represents divine perfection or completion.
Okay, 7 days of creation, 7 seals, 7 trumpets. It's God's number.
So what is 6? It's the number of a man. Man was created on the 6th day. It falls short of perfection. It's always 1 less than 7.
It strives for perfection but never hits it.
Exactly. So if you have 666, that is imperfection raised to its fullest. It's a trinity of imperfection. The source says it symbolizes human rebellion peaking.
Oh, wow.
Think about the unholy trio we just discussed, the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet.
Like counterfeit trinity.
Exactly. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are the Holy Trinity. You could say they are 777. The dragon, beast, and false prophet are the unholy trinity, 666. They are trying to be God, but they always fall short.
So it represents humanity trying to act like God and just failing completely.
Yes, it represents the system of the beast itself, complete imperfection masquerading as divine, the ultimate failure of humanism without God.
That makes a lot more sense. It fits with the whole theme of the chapter much better than just trying to turn Nero Caesar into a math equation.
It does. It makes it a theological statement rather than just a riddle for one generation.
So let's step back. We have the beast from the sea, political chaos and power. The beast from the earth, religious deception and propaganda. And a system that demands total allegiance through economic pressure and these dazzling fake miracles.
It is a comprehensive system of control, political, religious, and economic, all designed to replace God.
So for our learner, who wants to know why this matters beyond just being a scary story, what is the big takeaway here?
I think the main takeaway the source offers is about the nature of truth. This text describes a time when the evidence of your eyes will lie to you. The miracles are real fire comes down, the wound heals, but the source behind them is evil.
So seeing is not believing.
Exactly. In this scenario, seeing is deceiving. The call for the believer is for wisdom and patience. You have to look past the spectacle. You have to remember that the beast's power is given, meaning it's temporary and permitted by God, and that the true power, the Lamb, has a plan that predates all the chaos.
It's a call to trust the unseen reality over the seen reality. To trust the book of life over the fire from the sky.
That's a great way to put it. Even when the whole world is marveling at the beast, the person with wisdom looks at the book of life and knows how the story ends.
It's a heavy chapter, but that perspective shifts everything. It turns a horror story into a story of endurance.
Absolutely.
Before we sign off, I want to leave our listener with a thought from the source that I'm still chewing on. We talked about how everything the beast does is a copycat.
The counterfeits.
The counterfeits. He mimics the resurrection. The false prophet mimics the Holy Spirit. The mark mimics the seal. And, I've heard that bank tellers are trained to spot counterfeit bills, not by studying the fakes, but by studying the real bills so intensely that they notice when something is slightly off.
That's true. If you know the texture of the real thing, the fake feels wrong instantly.
So here's the provocative question. If the ultimate evil presents itself as a perfect counterfeit of the good healing wounds, doing miracles, seemingly bringing order, how much of what the world accepts as truth right now is actually just a really well-crafted fake?
That is the question. If you don't know the genuine article, the real Christ, how would you ever spot the forgery?
Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one. Stay curious.